We're starting today's programming with a session about distribution and partnerships. As you all know, I spend a lot of my time at INN working on these issues, and it's often working in partnership with the people you're about to hear from. Oh, now I've gone into full screen, which means that my script is missing. So bear with me 1 second while I pop back over and find that. Don't want to mispronounce anything. Anyway, let me start off by thanking three generous sponsors of INN Days 2021, the Associated Press, Patch, and Smart News, and also welcome them to this discussion we're about to have. We so appreciate your support and participation in our programming yesterday and today. Joining us is Noreen Gillespie, Deputy Managing Editor, U.S. News at the Associated Press, Colin Miner, Manager of News and Content Partnerships from Patch, and Rich Jaroslavsky, Vice President for Content and Chief Journalist for Smart News. They'll be joined by San Jose Spotlight founder and publisher Ramona Gurwargas, who will join us in conversation about how her young organization has leveraged publishing partnerships in its early years to grow its audience. As we get started, just a few quick notes. This session is pretty tight with about 30 minutes, so we're going to try and keep it moving along. If you have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll try to answer as many as we can, either at the end or via the chat as we go through. We'll also be sharing contact information for all these folks, so if you'd like, you can follow up after the session. I see all of my esteemed panelists here, so let's go ahead and get started. Ramona, I want to start with you to help set the table for this conversation. Tell me, just a little bit about how San Jose Spotlight thought about distribution partnerships at launch, and how's that changed as you've gone along?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this because I think for San Jose Spotlight and for many publishers out there, there is a sense of maybe some hesitancy and maybe some concern when it comes to distribution and partnerships like this, because I think oftentimes we think that maybe we're giving away our content for free, and what do we get out of it? Like, how is this beneficial to us? And so I just wanted to kind of walk you through our mindset and what went into making the decision. My co-founder and I am actually the co-founder with my husband, Josh Bruce, really gave a lot of thought to partnerships and how we wanted our content to be distributed. And I just wanted to first share that I think the hesitancy is understandable. I think it's normal because you do feel like, am I giving away my content for free, and what's the trade-off? And so San Jose Spotlight is about 2.5 years old. We were founded in January of 2019. And so when we were first approached, we were actually approached by Colin, who's here on the call, and he'll talk to you a little bit about what Patch does. And he approached us and basically said that they wanted to distribute our content. And I had worked for Patch as a freelance journalist, eons ago. So I knew a little bit about Patch and their model and what it was all about. But at first it was, I was unsure about, again, what was in it for us and how do we leverage this partnership to get what we want. And I think what advice I can give to the folks tuning in today is that when you're thinking about these partnerships and you're being approached by, distribution partners like Smart News and Patch and AP and Newsbreak and so many others out there, is just think about what you want out of this partnership and think about what goals you have, and don't be afraid to ask for those things. So for us, what was really important as a new young organization was that we are able to get more newsletter signups, more newsletter subscriptions. It was very important for us to get more donors because that's obviously how we, pay the bills and keep doing our work. And so I had a conversation with Colin about that, it's really important to get subscriptions, and it's really important to get donations. So no matter what we do, those have to be front and center in our partnership. And he was kind enough to talk to me about how we can make that happen. We ended up adding a prompt at the bottom of every San Jose Spotlight story that runs on Patch's website that says San Jose Spotlight is a nonprofit news organization. We're dedicated to independent political and business reporting. Please support our journalism by clicking here, and it takes readers directly to our donation page. We're in the process now of adding a prompt to the very top of the stories about newsletter signups, and Colin has promised me that will pull into the Patch story so all the Patch readers can see that as well. And also thinking about revenue, right? I mean, Patch is one of those organizations that's offering for nonprofits like us, 1 penny per page view. And so, I looked at these analytics right before the call. In June, San Jose Spotlight had about 8,000 page views on Patch's website. And this year in 2021, the last 6 months, we've had about 98,000 page views. So that translates to about $980 that's just deposited in our bank account that we really haven't done anything for, right? We haven't really gone out there and actively worked for, other than doing great journalism, which is something we're all doing every day anyway. So just be thinking about what you want out of these partnerships, and don't be afraid to ask for what you want, because so many times they can customize your plan, or they can customize your agreement so that you can get the things that you feel like you need to be successful as a nonprofit news organization. We all work really hard with very few and limited resources. So if we give away our content in some way, there should be a clear benefit to you and to your organization as well. And most of these partners are willing to do that. So
Ramona, thanks. And you did a great job setting up this whole conversation. I'm going to turn to Rich first because Rich has a dog in his lap, and I'm a sucker for a dog. In fact, no lie, I got, as an intern 100 years ago, I got my first front page story by setting up the subject to have her picture taken with a dog. But that's a whole nother story for another day. So Rich, we're going to turn to you. So Ramona talked a lot about how, publishers shouldn't be afraid to say what they want and ask for what they need. Tell me a little bit about how Smart News is working to sort of customize and fine tune and work directly with publishers in a way that helps them meet their goals.
Well, thanks very much. It's a real pleasure to be here, and we really appreciate everything that INN and INN members do. And I'm saying that not just in my capacity at Smart News, but as somebody who's been involved with news for a very long time, and with digital news for a very long time. When we started Smart News, being able to work well with media partners was always front and center. But being able to work well with public interest and nonprofit sites was also front and center. Not because it's a huge business for us, but because it furthers our mission to serve the public good. So we've worked with a great many nonprofit sites by now, including ProPublica, which has been a hugely valuable partner, the Marshall Project, many smaller organizations as well. And the one thing I've learned over that in that period and with that experience is that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Some nonprofit sites, the focus is very much on filling the funnel for newsletters, on being able to contribute or to attract contributors. Others have other motivations and other needs. And what we try to do is, to the maximum extent possible, work with you. We have some built-in features within the Smart News platform that people have gotten very creative about being able to use. For example, we have a couple of what we call call to action links, which are some of our commercial partners use those to link to sponsored content. But some of our nonprofit partners use those to link to signups for newsletters. We also provide to our partners an advertising space on every story. The answer to what can we use that for is whatever you want. We don't take a revenue share off of that advertising space, and some nonprofits use that as a display ad to solicit contributions. So the real answer is that, to the extent that we can, we are definitely available and interested in working with you to figure out something that works for you individually, because what works for Ramona may not work for somebody else. So the first question you have to ask is, what do you need? And then we can work with you to figure out, okay, well, here's how we can help you address that. The fundamental benefit, of course, of working with a platform like Smart News is that we are nationwide in scope, indeed beyond the US borders, and we can expose content to a much broader audience. That's something that that kind of reach is something that I know is a challenge for many individual sites. But we also have local channels that can help increase local penetration as well. So the short answer is there's just a multitude of ways that we can work with you and are interested in working with you. And to echo what Ramona said, the key thing is for you to tell us what you need, and we'll do our best to come up with a solution that works for you.
Thanks, Rich. Colin, I want to turn to you, and then Noreen, I'm coming to you to take us in a different direction. But Colin, tell me about how you're helping members find success. I mean, Patch's sort of calling card in this space is, as Ramona said, you guys are paying a penny for page views. So give me a couple examples of news organizations that are really, able to pay some significant freelancer bills or contribute to a reporter salary because they're publishing really successfully on Patch. Colin, you're on mute, my friend.
Sorry about that. I don't want to get into details about who's getting how much, but I can tell you that over the past couple, we have paid out more than $130,000 to news organizations around the country who are partners with us, several dozen of which are INN members. And, what we tell people when they sign up is no one's going to get rich off the partnership program. But as Ramona pointed out, people are going to get from a couple $100 to, we have a couple of news organizations getting up between $1,500 and $3,000 a month as a result of their partnership with Patch. So, you're not going to get rich. You are going to be able to buy a new laptop, pay an intern, pay some freelancers and stuff like that. The other thing that Patch really does do for news organizations, we have a very simple approach is you guys don't have to do anything other than the great journalism that you do. And we share the content as far and wide as we can. Patch has been very lucky to have been profitable the past 5 years. We have great reach. We are in more than 1,200 communities now around the country. And every Patch has a Facebook presence, an Instagram presence, and a newsletter presence, which means that content is from other news organizations has an opportunity to show up in people's inboxes every morning. And we also, and as Ramona pointed out, every article by every partner runs under the partner's byline, has at least 3 links back to the partner's website, and often has the space to use it for subscription call outs, donation call outs, and stuff like that. So we have partners like Ramona, we have partners like Cal Matters, In Depth New Hampshire, the 74 Million, the Texas Tribune. We have big and small, and they're not an INN partner, but Consumer Reports came to us because they know that our reach into, really hyper local areas gives them a new audience. So, what we do for partners is we give them some money, we give them more exposure, more readers, and try to make their lives a little better.
Yeah, Colin, I understand why you don't want to share, but there are a couple I can share, both Texas Tribune and In Depth New Hampshire. So sort of large organization and small organization, both are examples of in that, very large pie organizations doing really, really well with Patch. So it does really run the gamut. Noreen, like I said, I'm coming to you and we're going to head off in a different direction with this conversation now. I think AP is both a giant distributor of content and also a giant source of content. And that's why I think what you all are doing with StoryShare and setting up networks is really interesting. And I wondered if you might be able to talk a little bit about how you're thinking of setting up subnetworks that help people both share their content and also get some access to content they might be able to use.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So for those of you who don't know what StoryShare is, we developed this about 1.5 years ago. And the premise was, we know that there are times that collaboration makes sense over competition. And so we wanted to see how we could knit together these virtual newsrooms, either around geography or topic, so that newsrooms could work together to have this sort of reservoir of content that could help reach their audiences. And, over the past year, we've had something like 6,000 stories run through 7 networks, which has been really exciting. Our most recent launch was an Indigenous Peoples Network that has brought together players like Indian Country Today, Buffalo's Fire, along with, newspapers that, represent communities from Connecticut to Alaska. And it's been really cool to see what happens once these networks come together, right? Now, rather than being solely responsible for the content production as an individual newsroom, you have the ability to tap into all of these other newsrooms to really create, this huge well of content that does resonate with audience goals. And so, we also know that flexibility is really important here. There's sometimes that you don't want to share, right? Sometimes you do want to keep something just in your newsroom or your platform, but StoryShare gives you the ability to do that, right? You can share what you want, when you want, how you want, and really set the own terms of how you want to be sharing content across other newsrooms.
That's great. It was interesting. We all got together and had a chance to talk, and talking to Ramona, it's clear that all of these organizations and partnerships feel a different role and need in individuals' newsrooms. Ramona's like, we're on Patch and we're talking to Smart News, and I'd love for StoryShare to come to the Bay Area so that I can plug in there. So it's interesting to see how one publisher can really kind of tap into these in different ways. So Ramona, I want to come back to you and say and give you a chance to sort of speak to these platforms and other platforms that may be watching but not on the call. What is it that you need? What else do you need? What's the next? How else can these big platforms with maybe more resources or bigger audiences, what could they do next to make life better for independent publishers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for us, being able to elevate some of our big exclusive stories would be an incredible opportunity. I know Collins started to help us with this. Unfortunately, San Jose had a mass shooting a little over a week ago where 9 people were killed. When that happened, our team was on the ground covering, everything that was going on. And in that moment, being able to elevate that story on a national scale, to be able to use, platforms like Patch and Smart News and Newsbreak and so many others to do the local journalism that we do every day, but on a national scale, to be able to bring in new, new readers and new audience members was really important to us. Because I think at some point, as small publishers, our reach becomes somewhat limited, right? We know that we're doing great work. We know that we're on the ground, but how do we get new readers in the door? How do new readers discover us? And I think once in a while, you've got a big story like that breaks in your backyard, in your hometown, and you're competing now with so many other outlets, so many other organizations that come in and do one story and then they go away, right? They leave. But we're here on the ground, we're local, we've been here from the start, we're going to be here after, the tragedy's over and the aftermath of the tragedy. And so I would love to see these partners, work with local publishers to elevate certain stories and to be able to sort of break through the noise and take the work that the INN members are doing and put that on a larger platform. And I don't know what that looks like, but I know with the shooting, for example, Colin and his team at Patch did a really great job of posting that story in multiple places, prominently posting that story so that we were able to sort of, basically have folks turn to us when they wanted that information on this huge national breaking story. And then just continue to look for ways to, bring in new subscriptions, bring in new donations, allowing us to experiment with stuff, allowing us to maybe move the calls to action. You know, some partners will say that that has to be at the bottom of the story. Well, I would love to have that in the middle or at the top of the story, because I know that not all readers get to the very end of a story, right? So being able to experiment with partners about where we put those calls to action, having some analytics about what's working and what's not, and being flexible enough to change something that's not working. If a call to action button at the bottom of the story is not working, let's experiment putting it at the top or in the middle and see how it does. So just keeping that conversation going and testing things and trying new things and being able to just be open-minded to experimenting.
Cool.
Jonathan, can I just build a little on what?
Yeah, let me
Colin-
set the table
Okay.
on one thing, Colin, and then I
Yeah.
will let you continue. I just say
No,
we have
no
about
worries.
10 minutes left, so this is moving as fast as I thought it would. I've seen a couple questions in the chat. Thanks, Rich and Noreen, for diving in and answering. If other folks have questions, put them in. Hopefully we can ask a couple of the group. Colin, go ahead, and then maybe at the same time also sort of, just give us a preview of what's coming for you. And then I'm going to go around in maybe 30 or 60 seconds. Each of you can kind of say a bit about the next, 6 to 12 months with your organizations. But Colin, go ahead.
I will be as quick as possible. Just building on what Ramona said, one of the important things for us is we try to keep in contact with as many of our partners as possible on a regular basis, encouraging people to let us know when they have a special story, something that deserves a little bit more love, a little bit more attention, so we can try to do whatever is possible to get that story out there in as many different places as possible. One of the great things about Patch is there may be a great story in San Jose that is actually of interest to not just the surrounding area, but the state, the region, and sadly, in the case of the shooting 2 weeks ago, the country. So we work with people. We also are we make sure every partner has their own analytics dashboard so they can track how stories are performing on Patch. And this way we can talk with the partner about what's working, what isn't, and try to improve the way we play, improve the play that we give stories. As for, looking in the future, we're just, we're trying very hard to continue on the path that we're going. We're very corny about our mission. For us, it's all about getting information to the reader. We call it the Miracle on 34th Street approach to partnerships. We recognize as many reporters as we hire, and we have about 200 around the country now, we're never going to be able to cover everything. So like the kid going into Macy's and asking Santa for a toy that Macy's doesn't have, he sends them to Gimbels. So we say to our readers, we couldn't cover this, but we work with this news organization that can. And for us, it's all about cooperation, not competition. We feel that we're all in this together. We all have the same mission of keeping people informed and helping, improve the world through, making better places and letting people know what's going on around them.
Thanks, Colin. Rich, over to you. Any exciting updates or anything that you're really psyched about from the Smart News perspective that you think may be really relevant to this audience here today?
Yeah, we actually created early this year a new publisher portal that is basically an input. It's a way for publishers to go get the information that they need to become Smart News partners, feed specs, et cetera, et cetera. And that actually has proven to be something that we've heard from a lot of publishers is very, very useful. And so we're going to be expanding that effort going forward and making more resources available so that we want to reduce the overhead required of publishers to get onto the platform. If I may have 10 more seconds to just say two things. One is to echo what Colin said. Smart News also provides to all our partners a dashboard called Smart News Insights that gives the publisher not only data about what's being consumed on Smart News and where, but gives the publishers the control of being able to withdraw stories from Smart News if there's an issue with a story, and is really designed to give maximum control. I also want to tell one quick story of something that we did a couple years ago that there may even be people here in the audience who remember, which was there was a major local story out of Texas, and we pushed, sent a Texas Tribune story as a breaking push, and the Texas Tribune went down under the load. And when I encountered vice president of the Tribune a couple weeks later, I was abjectly apologetic. My God, we didn't want to take down your site. And he looked at me like I was kind of an idiot. And he said, "Oh, no, no, no." He said, "That was entirely our fault. We identified some flaws in our configuration. You can break our servers anytime you want." So I've taken that particularly as a motto, which is, one of our goals is to stress your servers, and I'd love to be able to do that again.
Yeah, I think most of our members would love that. Noreen, I think you're seeing a clamor for StoryShare and states and topics in the chat, and thank you for that. But say a little more. You mentioned in the chat a couple, maybe a climate vertical or water issues. Say a little bit more about what you're thinking about and anything else that you're hoping to bring to StoryShare in the next year or so.
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank everyone. I think we could probably launch 10 more networks just with all the chatter that's going on in the chat. So a couple of things I can just talk to if you're interested in starting a network. I think there's a couple of things. We really look for willingness in an ecosystem. That's the first qualification, right? Is there a critical mass of partners that want to participate? That's how we get started. If that's a yes and they're willing to, give it a try, then we can get them on the roadmap. So, if you are interested, reach out to me. If you've got partners who are interested, or if you're seeking a partner and are wondering if anyone has approached us about a state or a topic, let us know. We do have a goal of getting to 20 networks this year. We'll be at 8 next month, so it's moving along. One of the most interesting things that we've found over the past couple of months is that these networks can really evolve to meet the needs of the ecosystem and the needs of the audience for each newsroom. In some places there's an intense geographic interest, but local news is not just about geography, it's also about topic, and it's about the ability to connect into communities. And so what we're doing with the topical networks is really trying to address that, right? What can each local partner bring to that topic to really turbocharge your ability to reach your audience with really interesting content from points all around the world that may relate to your local community? So I expect going forward, we'll have a mix, right? Some of these networks will be topical, some of them will be geographic. And each of them takes on their own personality, because we do want this to be flexible. We do want it to meet the needs of the participants, and we want everyone to be good neighbors in these networks, right? We don't want people to be just sort of along for the ride. We want them to be active, good citizens, and in making each of these networks really beneficial for local news.
We have just a minute or two left, and I think a lot of the questions have been answered in chat, which is great because there's no way we could have gotten to all of them. So I want to kind of put a big sort of thorny question out there that, a lot of, I think that's just good to hear from you all. We have a lot of members in the chat, but on the call, but I've also seen a lot of non-member organizations in the call. And, one of the things that INN does, and to be an INN member, you have to meet a certain set of editorial and financial transparency standards, which I think is really, really important. And it's one thing we tout when we go to kind of have these conversations with networks like yours. But for organizations that might not be INN members, or even for members, to hear, how do you guys think about standards? How does that INN membership either figure into your thoughts, or how do you kind of implement standards that protect, the quality of the networks that you have? Maybe let's try and do 30 seconds a piece, just so we can end almost on time. I'm going to run late. That's what
I can start, Jonathan. First, I would just like to say we love that you vet the INN members. It makes us very easy to know when an INN organization is approaching AP about being in one of these networks. It's the gold standard, right? So when an INN group comes to us, we know that you've already put them through a rigorous process. So it makes our standards process much, much easier and quicker in the onboarding process.
Thanks, Noreen. And then Rich, let's go to you.
Yeah, we've prided ourselves from the beginning on our efforts to maintain the content quality, keeping fake news off the platform. So we have fairly rigorous standard. We have very rigorous standards for publishers that we aggregate. I have no doubt that everybody on this call would clear those hurdles with ease. And the fact, as Noreen said, that you're an INN member is 90% of the gets you 90% of the way there before you even begin.
Great. Colin?
Along with everybody, we love INN members. INN has been very important to us, which is why we've also run, a couple series by, collaborations among your members. Once, if they're with you, it's like the old, it's a, if you're with INN, it's a vouch. And as for others, we try very hard to vet. We know not everybody's going to be Consumer Reports, and there have been times we've had to turn people down because of questions about whether they are who they say they are, whether they're really a local news thing or a political front operating as a pseudo news organization. So we try to vet wherever possible. There have been a good dozen or more instances where we've had to say, we appreciate it, but we have too many questions, and we work very hard at maintaining the quality on our sites.
Well, thank you. And I'm over, so I'm going to wrap this up, but I want to thank Noreen, Colin, Rich, and Ramona so much for being here.